Welcome back to Caps Hockey Review. Back with you again. 3-game edition of the program. For the Caps, a real rough stretch has the rough patch has just unraveled this team. They're struggling mightily. There's some possible trades they're looking at to improve this team, but it's been a rough go. We'll get into it. Caps Hockey Review. Let's go. And off we go. Caps Hockey Review underway yet again. I'm speaking positively for the moment, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, it isn't going to last today. This has been just a mighty struggle for the Caps. 3 just ugly games for Washington. The Columbus Blue Jackets. I would classify, let me back up for just a second. I would classify all 3 of these games under winnable games for the Capitals. The Columbus Blue Jackets, Montreal Canadiens, Columbus Blue Jackets, Montreal Canadiens, and Ottawa Senators. I apologize there. None of these teams are playoff teams. I would say Columbus is probably the closest of the bunch, and they're not real close. These games, this is concerning to me for the Caps, because I've talked about before, these non-playoff teams, okay, what they lack in skill, they're going to make up for in hard work, and they did. And the Caps didn't know what to do with it. That is a sign to me that this team has not changed from the past couple of years. It's still the same group that has hit this slump. They struggle with teams that work really hard, and I just don't see it working out. I could be wrong. They could turn this around. Anthony Mantha is close to a return, as the ticker down there will show you. Maybe he's the answer. TJ Oshie still not skating yet, so we're not going to see him for a little bit. Luckily or unluckily, depending on how you want to look at it, for a draft position for the Caps, they're far enough ahead in the standings that scorching start they had at the beginning of the season was enough to, I think, keep them afloat to get into the playoffs. Barring, I said before, barring a downward spiral to end all downward spirals, but this is as bad as I can remember this team looking, maybe since 2014 when they missed the playoffs. So I won't rule it out. They've played 50 games, 32 left to go, 32 to really kind of sort this out, get some bodies back, and figure out what this team is. So, unfortunately, we haven't seen a healthy lineup all season. I keep saying it because it's true. It's true. We have not seen the full healthy lineup all season. I don't know if getting everybody back is going to make a ton of difference. This team just looks... They struggle. They struggle with teams that work hard. They can't put together a full 60-minute effort. Stop me if you've heard this before, because you have, because I've been saying it for the last 2, 3, 4 years now. So this is an ugly situation for the Caps. There's some possible trades on the table, which I'll get into later, but let's roll through these games real quick. Columbus Blue Jackets. Caps, it's a high-scoring affair. The Jackets have some guys who can put the puck in the net, some exciting young guys that are, pretty good. So it was a pretty high-scoring affair. The Caps, down a goal, less than a minute to go. Or a little more than a minute to go. Pull the goalie, get it even. Okay, we're looking at overtime. We're looking at the Caps maybe trying to pot another one quick and get out of here in regulation. What happens? You give one up to the Blue Jackets at the end of regulation. It's just another blow to this team that I don't know that they can bounce back from. I mean, if I'm really honest with myself and with you, I don't know if they can bounce back from this. They may make the playoffs, but I think it's going to be real nasty. I think it's going to be a quick first round exit to whichever one of these powerhouses at the top of the division. I mean, or the Eastern Conference. I mean, Florida Panthers, Pittsburgh Penguins, Tampa Bay Lightning are always dangerous, of course. Hurricanes. I don't like any of those matchups. I don't like the Caps matching up with the Bruins, who are right now the first wild card spot. I think it'd still be a blowout. So the Caps have a lot to address here. And Montreal, I mean, they get a win. They get a win. To be expected. I mean, Montreal is far and away the worst team in the NHL. They've been decimated by injuries all season. They don't have Carey Price. This is a winnable game. This would chalk under winnable game. Their leading point scorer this season is averaging less than 3/4 of a point per game. Their leading goal scorer has 8 goals. They have won 8 games all season. I don't get it. I mean, it's a winnable game, and they did win, yes. They looked real good for about 20 minutes. They looked kind of okay for that second period. The third period was awful. Absolutely awful. Ilya Samsonov is the reason the Caps were able to get out of Montreal with a win. You're almost doubled up in shots by the worst team in the NHL. I mean, yeah, a win's a win. 2 points is 2 points. Fine. That kind of play, imagine what's gonna happen when they bump into a really good team again. They have kind of an easy little stretch here. They're playing some games you would classify under softball, gimme, winnable. They're games the Caps should win. Convincingly. If this team is what we thought they were at the start of the season, what they are supposed to be, they should win these games easily. I get it. It's the NHL. There's no easy games. Fair. But these should be winnable games for this team. So, they get it in Montreal. They get out of Montreal with a win, albeit fairly luckily, thanks to some stellar goaltending by Samsonov. First time we've seen real stellar goaltending for this team in the last month or so. I mean, this has been an ugly stretch also for everybody. I mean, the goalies are inconsistent. I think all season, at least when Samsonov was trending down, Vanecek was able to step in and kind of keep everything upright and keep it from tipping over. And vice versa. And now that's not happening. Obviously, with Vanecek out, he's not going to be able to do much for you, but this situation is just terrible for this team. This thing is unraveling in a hurry. Getting to Ottawa. Back on home ice. It's worth noting they didn't have Alex Ovechkin in Montreal, but again, it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter that much. I mean, they get a win without him, fine. But the lack of effort and the lack of ability to sustain any kind of attack in that third period was horrid. It was putrid. They couldn't get out of their own end of the ice. It was disgusting. So, for the Caps, moving to Sunday's game against the Senators. You get Ovi back. That's great. That's good. Samsonov gets the start. Great game in Montreal for him. He deserved it. What does this team do? Mind you, you're coming back home. You're playing against one of the worst teams in the NHL, a team that is on the second half of a back-to-back after losing to the Bruins the night before, and a team that up until this game had not scored a goal in almost 160 minutes of game time. For any of those who are not strong with math, this was almost 2.5 games that the Ottawa Senators went without a goal. Should be easy. I mean, this thing's teed up for you. They're on the second half of a back-to-back. They traveled to Washington overnight. Haven't scored in a couple days. There is no good explanation. There is no good reason why the Caps lost this game in such a poor fashion. They got off to a slow start, absolutely slow start. Ottawa was a team that played the night before, and they are out there out-skating, out-working, out-battling the Caps at every turn, and they score the game's first 2 goals. They score a shorty. This Caps team, this power play is just hot garbage at this point. I mean, it is completely ineffective. It's almost more likely at this point that they're going to give up a shorty than actually score a goal while they're on the power play. I mean, this used to be one of the most dominant power plays in the NHL. Used to be. The problem is, I think it's stayed pretty much exactly the same for the last 5, 6 years, 7 years. Nothing's changed. Everybody else in the league has adapted and figured out how to stop it, and the Caps still just keep trying to punch that square peg into the round hole. So this is just a real ugly situation. You end up losing to Ottawa 4-1. They do score a goal on the power play in this game, mind you. I mean, not pretty, but it doesn't matter how pretty it is. It matters that it goes in the net, and it did. Nick Backstrom gets one from Ovi and Carlson. Not really much consolation in this thing, though. I mean, this was just... God, this was bad. I don't know if this is the worst game they've played all year, but it's definitely top 3. This was just disgusting. I mean, this is up there with that Chicago game where they gave up 3 goals in about 2 minutes. So, for Washington, I mean, you're coming off 3 just awful performances. You haven't been winning too many games as of late. You've still got 2 of your top 6 forwards out. Zach Vanacek's still out. Is traveling with the team to Nashville, though. TJ Oshie is not. This situation is ugly. And I keep saying that. Who's to blame for this? I mean, is it injuries? Partially. Is it coaching? I've been quick to pin it on coaches in the past, but when you look at, Brian McClellan has been the Caps GM for about, he was hired in the summer of 2014, make it about 8 years. So he has had 3 head coaches now in his time in DC. Barry Trotz, Todd Reardon, and now Peter Laviolette. Now, why am I telling you this? Well, they let Barry Trotz go. Let's be real honest with each other here. I mean, Barry was angry with the lack of communication and just kind of the environment of the organization that it turned into, because it became clear that they wanted Reardon to be their guy, but Trotz still won the cup. So, what do you do? And he ends up walking. I still firmly believe to this day that if the Capitals brass, if McClellan, Leonsis, whoever made the decision wanted Trotz there, he would still be there. That's what I believe. So you bring in Todd Reardon. I mean, he was kind of anointed the heir apparent to Barry Trotz when, Trotz was hired and brought him in as part of his staff. But Brian McClellan still made the decision to promote Todd Reardon to head coach. Okay? So now as McClellan, you've been in on 2 head coaches. You were in on the decision on Barry Trotz, and you obviously made the decision on Reardon. Now you've made the decision on Laviolette. Okay, so we're going through coaches, but things are not really changing. So I have a hard time believing this is solely a coaching issue. Ultimately, what it comes down to, the coach is responsible, obviously, for the team on the ice, but the coach can only do what he can with what's available to him as far as players on the roster. The GM, Brian McClellan, is responsible for putting this roster together. Signing, trades, whatever. Laviolette can only do so much with what McClellan gives him. Now, am I saying that it's all Brian McClellan's fault? No. But it's ugly. I'll come back to this. I'll circle back to this. Trade rumors. I want to get there first before I tear into McClellan a little bit. Trade rumors. Caps were rumored to be in on Marc-Andre Fleury. Now it's come out they were. They put on the full court press. They were all in trying to acquire this guy. So, excuse me. So, for the Capitals, what happened? Well, Marc-Andre Fleury, obviously longtime Pittsburgh Penguin. At this stage in his career, Fleury has a fair bit of say in where he goes. He has a 10-team no-trade list, and the Caps are a part of that list. Now, why? Well, being a Pittsburgh Penguin for so long, you've been on the other side of this Caps-Pens rivalry for so long, playing for the Capitals would be weird. I mean, to say the least, it would be weird. So, we're not going to see Flower in a Capitals jersey ever, in all likelihood. So, that's off the table. The goalie chatter has kind of calmed down. I don't know if they're just going to try to ride with what they have. I mean, Braden Holtby, I think, is still an option if they want to pursue it. But, obviously, that's up to them. The heat has turned up on a forward, though. Obviously, I outlined some potential options for the Capitals. Alex DeBrincat doesn't seem to be an option. I think the Hawks would be silly to trade him at this point. Anyway, Pablo Zaka from the New Jersey Devils has really, really kind of been linked to the Caps these last couple days. I certainly think he could be an option. Obviously, the Devils aren't making the playoffs. He's on the last year of his contract. So, I would classify Zaka as more of a, not depth forward, but I don't know what he's going to do in your top six. Maybe he kills it. I mean, he's been playing in New Jersey his whole career. They haven't really been that great in his time there. They had one or two seasons where they were okay. But he might be great with some more experienced guys, maybe some guys that are a little bit more skilled, but we'll see. Also, rumor has it the Vancouver Canucks are ready to unload JT Miller. This is interesting. I mean, the money situation, the Caps would maybe have to get creative to make it work, but Miller is, quick skater, can put the puck in the net. He's leading the Canucks in goals and points so far this season, and he's defensively responsible. Now, I've said before, do the Caps need a ton of help in their D zone? At the time I said no, but looking at it now, it's like, yeah, maybe they could. Maybe they could use a little bit more help in that D zone, maybe eliminate some of these silly goals that keep going in the net. And obviously somebody to put pucks in the net at the other end of the ice, because they haven't done it. It's for the Caps. This whole stretch, and moving off trade rumors, those are the few. But moving away from that, making this hasty transition to really what's up with this team. Well, they just can't put everything together. And consistency-wise for 60 minutes, but also there's nights they get great goaltending and can't put the puck in the net. And there's nights they put the puck in the net and the goalie can't keep the puck out of our net. So it's just nothing is going right. Everything's out of sync. And unfortunately, Laviolette has the pretty unenviable task at this point of trying to reel all of this in, get this team reset, and get them ready for the playoffs. I would not want to be in his shoes. This is a tall task for Peter Laviolette. And getting back to this McClellan discussion, let me start this by saying, I don't know that anybody will be fired this year. With all the injuries the Caps have had, it's really, we haven't seen the full team. As I said, we haven't seen the full team all year. So, do I think anybody's going to be fired? No. But let's just play a little hypothetical here. If somebody was to be fired, Brian McClellan, I think, is the one that would need to be fired. Why? Well, I already said it's up to him to put this team together. It's up to him to build the roster, and quite frankly, I mean, what has he brought to the Caps in recent years? I mean, yes, okay. He made some pretty good signings. I mean, he signed Brooks Orpik. He signed Matt Niskanen. They're both gone by now. I mean, they won the Cup. They did what they came to DC to do, but obviously that's done. So what has he really brought in that has made a huge difference for this team? Well, obviously that, putting together that fourth line. The Caps have a really good fourth line. Okay. Bringing in a Lars Eller. I mean, he's brought in some really, solid depth players, but where I'm going with this is that top 6 forward group, it's, man, I think things are getting a little stale. And of course, with the draft, you hope that some of these young guys will jump up and grab some of these spots. Well, they haven't yet. Maybe they will. Like Connor McMichael, Hendrix Lapierre look like they have the potential. But for the most part, the core group of this team is still that group that was drafted by George McPhee. Ovechkin, Backstrom, Wilson, Kuznetsov, Carlson, Orlov. I would say McClellan has struggled most with drafts. Not too many of the guys that he's drafted have panned out. I mean, mostly the goalies have. I mean, Vanacek, obviously, Samsonov, NHL goalies by now, but not too much. I mean, we've seen McMichael a little bit. We've seen Protas, and hopefully the future's bright for those guys, but what am I getting to in this rambling roundabout way? What am I working my way around to here? Well, the team on the ice hasn't really changed in the last, however many years since they've won the Cup. They've kind of shuffled in and out some depth guys, but they haven't really brought in anything else that can help that top 6 or, the top 4 defensemen. So do I think he's going to get fired this year? Probably not. Probably not. I mean, just with all the injuries and everything like that. But the reason I'm saying this, Brian McClellan has been described as not really a hockey person. I've seen quotes that have described him as the least passionate hockey person they know. And that says a lot in that community. But enough about that. I'm not here to rip McClellan to pieces. I'm just saying. It's up to him to put this team together. He's been through some head coaches. Changing head coaches has not changed the performance on the ice. And look, I get it. We all have guys we love on this team. Like, I would not like to see TJ Oshie traded. I would not like to see an Evgeny Kuznetsov traded. And I don't think Kuz will be. We're still out on the Mantha experiment. I don't know if it's worked or not. I'm leaning toward no at this point. My point here, all of this summed up into 1 or 2 sentences, there needs to be a change. He needs to create a change on this team. Now, we all have our sentimental favorites. Of course we do. I am such a huge TJ Oshie fan. I would be very disappointed if he were to be traded. But, all of that aside, we can always bring him back. We can always retire number 77 if it comes to that and have our sentimental moment and it's all good and it's all happy. But this team, this organization, every organization in professional sports is in the business of winning. I don't know what they would get for any of these potential trades, Amantha and Oshie. I think more than anything to shake things up a little bit. I mean, things have not really changed in that top 6. I mean, you switched Verana with Mantha, but I've talked about that before. You basically traded Jacob Verana for a heavier, taller Jacob Verana. So enough about McClellan, enough about trades. As I've already said, I don't think, obviously TJ Oshie's injured. We won't see a trade for him this year probably. I mean, and at this point in his career, I mean, he's, getting to mid-30s. He's had some injury problems these last few years. What kind of value would he command? I don't know. I would lean toward not that much. So I may be just out of my mind. Very possibly. Who knows? Anyway, back on track here. For the Capitals, the downward trend is frightening. Now, like I said, do I think it's bad enough that they're going to fall out of playoff spot? No. But is that a good thing? I would say no. I mean, this team missing the playoffs is what needs to happen. I mean, we all remember what happened last time they missed the playoffs. 2014, everybody got fired. The house got cleaned. Leonsis was pissed. Ted Leonsis, team owner, not happy. Like, this was maybe a little bit as Ovechkin was moving out of his prime years, but there was no reason for that team to miss the playoffs, and they did. And I would argue that the way this team was built and the way Ovi's performed, and Backstrom's been pretty solid since coming back, there's no real reason that this team should miss the playoffs. If your oldest guys on the roster are contributing and leading your team in points in one case, that stands to reason it should be a pretty good team, right? Well, they haven't been. So, do I think anything's going to change? I think we could see an acquisition, a JT Miller, a Pablo Zaka, to hopefully bolster that scoring a little bit. I mean, is one guy going to make a big difference? Maybe, maybe not. But, I mean, you bring back Mantha, hopefully bring back Oshie, bring in a Zaka, a Miller. 3, that could make a huge difference. I mean, we'd have to, obviously, some lineup changes would occur there, but this team needs a shakeup. I'll put it that way. This whole rambling mess that is today's episode, I'll put it this way. This team needs to be shooken up a little bit. I mean, things have gotten stale. Laviolette has tried shuffling things around, shuffling lines, shuffling guys in and out of the lineup. Hasn't really changed much. So I'm thinking that the way this team is built, maybe it's just not built to win in the current NHL. It was built to win in 2018, heavy, skilled, but it might not be now. So we'll see. We've got a little bit of time left in this season, 32 games to go, the first of which will take place this evening for the Caps in Nashville. Peter Laviolette returning to Music City for the first time, I believe, since being hired as Caps head coach. Yes, that is correct. So, big moment for him, of course, coming back to Nashville. Hopefully the boys can find a win for him. We'll see. I don't have high hopes. I mean, I don't have high hopes for very many games these days. I'm turning back into a pessimistic Caps fan. Not optimistic. I do this every season because this team is killing me. This team is turning my positive, fun-loving self into a pessimistic Caps just hater right now. Hopefully it changes. Hopefully it changes. We'll see. We got a little bit of time left in this season. Hopefully this team can get back on the horse, get some bodies healthy. I say that every freaking video. Hopefully it happens. Hopefully we see Anthony Mantha sooner than later. TJ Oshie is probably going to be later. Hopefully we see a trade. Trade deadline is coming up very quickly. So hopefully we see something. Something to inject some life into this team, to give this team a jump start. That's what I want to see. I want to see a consistent 60-minute effort out of this team, even if it ends in a loss. If the effort is there, the results will follow. That's what I'm looking for tonight in Nashville. Hopefully we are impressed this time. So I'll be back with you after these next 2 games. Hopefully not another 3-game edition of the program here. And looking forward past Nashville, I mean, for the Caps, it's Philly. So, I mean, I won't call it winnable game by any means, but Philly's struggling this year. I mean, Claude Giroux is probably on his way out at the trade deadline. But just throw wins out the window for the moment. I mean, just put together the effort. 60 hard miles, 20 smiles at the end of it, hopefully. Let's get it going again, boys. Needing something to get excited about for this team. I mean, football season's done. the Caps are all I have in the sports world right now. So I really very selfishly want them to do extremely well, and hopefully it starts with these next 2 games. Until next time, go Caps.